but I would like to call the meeting to order, our first official virtual meeting of the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I see that we have somebody on a phone from a 615 number that starts with a 9. Can you holler out and identify yourself so that we know who you are?
Yep, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for joining.
You're welcome. How are you?
Well, we're all good. We missed your lovely face at our last meeting, and we could have really used you because I had to use my handwriting, and it was quite bad.
I'm sorry about that. With all the winds that we had, I had a lot of storm damage that I had to get cleared up.
That's okay. I kind of
didn't have power.
Those are good excuses, so we'll excuse it this time. Fantastic. I'd like to say that we can't approve the minutes because we can't vote. But did anybody have any comments or changes about the minutes from the past 2 meetings that they would like to make?
I didn't have any. Of course, I wasn't at Saturday's meeting, so I, can't comment on that. But the minutes that Fabian put together for the very first meeting, I didn't have any changes, for those.
All right. Hearing none, then we are going to say that those have been reviewed, and we will vote to approve all 3 meeting notes at our in-person meeting next Saturday. So that is excellent. Congratulations to everybody. I want to now move on, if we can, to something that we talked about in our first in-person meeting, which was an opportunity to include those who may work better after some at-home reflection. And I wanted to open the floor to allow anybody who maybe sat with all the things we discussed over the weekend and had anything that they wanted to share or add in those categories, or something completely unrelated. So the floor is open for that. Excellent. I am glad to know that everybody felt satisfied by our previous discussion, but I'm also glad that we have this time penciled in, and I would like to thank Kenyatta for pushing for us to be conscious of this, and tell her that I really appreciate her for bringing that to everyone's attention. I think that was a really valuable discussion that we had, so thank you. Then let's move straight on to, I think, a really, really exciting turn of events, which is that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a facilitator. Her name is Quinta Martin. She is an experienced facilitator in this sort of committee work, but more importantly, she was the chair of the Bordeaux North Nashville Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee in this last cycle. So not only does she know how to run a meeting like this, but she has lived through meetings like this. And she is going to be here to help keep us on track to hit our benchmarks, to help steer the steering, and to help ensure that our conversations as a group aren't going down any rabbit holes, to kind of help keep our trains on the track. She and I have not had the opportunity to meet in person yet. As I mentioned, I am in Houston. The good news that I can share is that my mother did get discharged from the hospital today. So it has been completely insane around here. And I am operating at about a fifth of brain capacity. So as a way of welcoming Quinta to our group, I am literally going to turn the meeting over to her to steer from here and throw her directly into the deep end of the pool. So Ms. Martin, it is all you.
Well, thank you, Whitney. I appreciate your your remarks about me, and I hope that I live up to your expectations. We have a lot to do in front of us, and it will take the cooperation and the persistence to achieve our goals, which is to basically be the committee that works on the expansion of the last 2 years of participatory budgeting for the city of Nashville. The first 2 years, of course, we were successful in having community participation, and it increased more in the second year than it did in the first year. And of course, this year with it going to a citywide type of activity, we expect and will work towards making sure that it does represent the city as much as we can in terms of outreach and in terms of people understanding the process and being interested and willing to be involved in the process as possible. So I want to, first of all, tell you that this is not going to be easy, but it's going to be rewarding, because you will be out there encouraging people to in the community who may have had some I don't want to say begrudgment about things going on in their community, but this is now an opportunity for them to voice their concerns, get their concerns on an agenda, get consensus from the different parts of their community, which they may not be involved in before, and then to put it on a ballot to be voted on to see if it will be funded by city government with this $10 million grant that we have for this year's participatory budgeting process. The benefits, of course, will be those who are the beneficiary of the awards of receiving the highest votes to get the to receive the funding for their projects, but it also gives hope, and it gives opportunities to those who may be what you call passive members of our community to know that now they do have an opportunity to put their thoughts and their wishes out there and to get them heard. And that's what this is all about, making sure that the community feels like they are included and that they are being heard. So I will answer any questions that you have with regards to, the past. The first year I served as a budget delegate, and last year I served as chairman of the steering committee. And each year we learn something new and we make it better. And we're expecting the same to happen with this group that we are working with right now today. So I'm going to tell you, I'm in the car and I'm going to be switching over to my computer in about 5 minutes. And I'm going to ask for one thing for sure, make sure that you have your name and your on your video for when we have these virtual meetings. And I usually call for a verbal roll call. But if that's not something that our chairman is interested in doing, we will just take the names off of the call-in that you have, but make sure that you have your name there, because the secretary will have to pull that from the visual of the video. So as I said,
we've got a second. Who's the 931 phone number? Do you have a number that starts with a 931 area code?
It's me. Sorry, I was on mute. Evening, Wendy. This is Ian Prunty from District 6. We just welcomed a baby boy earlier this week, so I can't be in front of a computer, but I can be on the call. I hope that's okay.
Congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
Did you name your baby steering committee?
It was our number 2. It was a close second to Gabriel, but we went with Gabriel. Thank you.
Of course. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Quinta, because we have not discussed attendance policy yet, let's go ahead right now and just have Carol or whomever is available to write down these names. And then as we segue into our attendance discussion later in this call, we can pick that up as well.
Chair Pastor, can I make a comment at this point while Quinta is changing computers?
Absolutely.
All right. So, I'm going to put me on the screen. So I'm here at the Glencliff Community Center getting ready to do a presentation to a neighborhood group. So I apologize that I cannot be present, but I wanted to make sure I tell you that Lisa and Michael both emailed me to say that they wouldn't be able to continue being part of the steering committee. They were unhappy. They really wanted to do it, but they just had overcommitted and they just couldn't do it to the level that they wanted to do. So I already emailed each one of those council members, and I took the opportunity to email also the other council members of the districts that we don't have a steering committee member, to remind them that, we are still have openings for them to participate. And from my personal point of view, the best way to have equity citywide is to have people like you that speak for each one of your districts. So that's why I'm trying to push to get each district represented. And if you guys have friends in other districts, please tell them to reach out to me, because I can always give the name to the council member. Hopefully get that person to get started. That's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thank you, Fabian. And yes, I know you'll be stepping away from us for a little while, and we will survive without you, although not happily. So we appreciate it. Quinta, let us know when you are ready to roll. In the meantime, Ian, you're welcome to talk more about your baby.
Very cute. Eating well, double dimples, and quite heavy, 9.9 pounds. So we're calling him Chonky McDimples before we called him Gabriel, but I think we'll stick with Gabriel.
How old is your oldest, Ian?
3.5, and I'd say 90% excited, 10% some modest reservations about equal access to parents and that sort of thing. She put on her, her princess dress and all the bracelets she could find, because she really thought meeting him for the first time was important, which was sweet. And now I'm done. I could occupy this entire 2 hours, so I won't get started on it.
Just disappointed.
Sorry. This gives me an opportunity to present Michelle Baudreau. She works with the finance department, and she's been attending the participatory budgeting meetings from the very beginning, from the first cycle. And it's good to have somebody from the finance department joining us, because sometimes she can help us expedite things that we would need to figure out. So if you see the name Baudreau Michelle on the conversation, that's her.
Hey, Whitney, it's Lauren. Just real quick, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you were getting ready to speak, but of those that are able and on the committee, what is just a current roll call of those, or how many of those that are able and participating are actually on this call? Is everyone represented that could be?
Just giving it a quick glance, I do believe that we are missing a few folks. And like I said, we're going to talk about attendance policy during this meeting, and I really hope everyone will share their perspectives on what our obligations are to this committee, to one another, as well as to respecting our own time and our own boundaries.
There's a total of 24 people on this call, so minus Fabian and anybody else, that's where we are.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you both.
Since I'm not on video, I'm ready for the basic roll call for people to, announce their name. I'll start. Carol was District 11, and I'm the secretary.
Whitney, District 5.
Oh, I'm here.
Whitney, District 5, Chair.
Matt Ingram, District 13.
Michael
Lindsay
Jones,
Gilmore,
District 27.
29.
Antoine Fox, District 2, District 3, I'm sorry.
Tyler Brasher, District 15.
Kenyatta Swope, District 21.
Jacob Coupin, District 19.
Nicole Williams, District 20.
Tia Suso, District 32.
Cavan, District 18.
Sharon Barker, District 33.
Elizabeth Miller, District 25.
Lauren Balmer, District 23.
Ian Prunty, District 6.
Jason Sparks, D35, Vice Chair. Maybe when we do this virtually next time, we can just go down the list, the column, and just like call everybody's name off.
That would be the best way to do it. Yes.
We're all learning.
Garrett Lane, District
that-
26.
All right, hearing no further names. Quinta, we are ready to kick off with the first agenda item if you are.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get this last information into the system. A little more difficult than I thought it would be. This was sent to a different email address.
We believe in you.
Is Fabian still on? No, he's leaving.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Fabian, could you give me the WebEx code, the WebEx sign-in meeting ID?
Okay, I'm going to,
Not
on
the,
the,
not the long one.
on the invitation that I send you, there is a link to it.
I know, but then you sent it to you sent it to an email that addressed it. I'm trying to get passed over to this side.
Oh,
You sent it to the AOL account.
you want it on the Gmail account?
Yes, please send it to the Gmail account. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
In the meantime, it's 2497-098-9464.
Okay, hold on. Two 497-098-264. Is it Whitney?
The last four digits are 9464.
2497048
098
098.
9464.
And I already sent you the link to the Gmail account, so you can open that account and connect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry to keep everybody waiting, but I'm going to have to go do the presentation over there. So it's not that I like them better than you, but they're waiting for me. So I'll leave the computer on and then I'll come back when I'm done with them, okay? I'll just mute it.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're gonna have to let me in with, you're gonna have to let me in. Okay, wow. Okay. You let me in, Bobby? All right.
Quinta, just turn off your phone.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry. I wouldn't tell you my problem. My brother's in the hospital, so I just got here. So that's where I was coming from. All right, thank you, everyone. So it's good to see you. Are you all ready to start working? You're so quiet. Wait a minute. Why are you so quiet? All right. So one of the things that's important, of course, is for us to talk about attendance. And I know that that you haven't thought about this, but as a steering committee, it's important that you make a commitment to being a part of the process on a consistent basis. And I know that you all have probably talked about this before when you were talking about your ideas of what you thought the steering committee should and could and would do. But you as a steering committee have to make your self-governing rules about attendance. Has anyone had an opportunity to look at the previous guidelines from the 2022 steering committee to see what our guidelines were with regards to attendance, and what was your thought about that? And please feel free to raise your hand or just join in. And if you don't say anything, you know what happens then? Well, you get called on.
I'll start. Can you all hear me? Okay,
yes.
Great. Sorry, I raised my hand. But so as I was like thinking about the philosophy of an attendance policy, I wanted us to maybe think about like, what is the purpose of the attendance policy? Like, what is the goal and what happens? Sort of imagine we have an attendance policy and someone doesn't meet it. Like, is the concern that a certain district is not going to have representation if someone is just like not attending the meetings? And in that case, would we want that person to be replaced with another person, or would it even make sense for them to be replaced because we'd be however far we would be into the process? So like, I was really thinking, what is the purpose of the policy? And I thought maybe we could talk about that before we get to like what the policy should be.
Okay. Would you like an explanation before we continue, or you want to?
Well, no, I mean, I understand the concept of an attendance policy, like but I'm wondering from my colleagues, like my peers on the steering committee, sort of what is their idea of what an attendance policy would result in? Like, what are we wanting to make sure happens? Is it, like I said, that every district has a representative? Is it just making sure that we are like being adults and coming to meetings? Or anyway, so that's where I understand the policy. I just thought maybe we could talk about what our goal is with the policy as a group.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Anyone else?
I'll share my perspective on that, Nicole, which is that we've all, and my dog apologizes for barking, we've all shown our desire and commitment.
Wally does not apologize for barking, to be honest.
I think we've all demonstrated our commitment to this process by wanting to join the steering committee to begin with. And while I understand and appreciate the need to have an attendance policy, I personally feel like it's the kind of thing that should be more of the spirit rather than the letter of the law. I mean, we've already seen 2 members decide to withdraw from the process because they just didn't feel like they could give it their all. And I would expect that further people will self-select on that front. But then if there are people who just don't want to do it and aren't showing up, I think we'll be able to recognize that as a group and potentially deal with those situations when they arise. That's my opinion. I know we all have lives and babies and family members in the hospital and jobs and whatever. So I don't feel like we need to be too super draconian about it, but that's simply a woman's opinion.
That was my concern. You must have been reading my mind, because I was just, I understand the importance of setting those boundaries up on the front end so that you're not making up rules as you go along. But it does sort of start to feel like, okay, well, if you have 2 absences for this reason, but 3 absences in this way for that reason, like it gets to a point where it feels a little like, can we just be adults and like make this promise to each other that we're going to be honest about what our boundaries are, what our limits are, and if we can and can't be a part of the process, you know?
I think the delineation between an excused absence and an unexcused absence is pretty important, though, on that front. If you're just like not showing up and not telling anyone about it, I don't think that's acceptable. We've been entrusted with running this process, and the least we can do is let everyone know that we're not going to be there, and why, I guess, or to the extent that it's relevant. But just a heads up is important, I think. I think the guidelines from 2022, the way I read them, are very gracious. With you get essentially 6 excused absences, which is a full month and a half of this project.
And I think Whitney and I could also reach out to those individuals too, just to give an extra piece of human kindness to the process as well.
Anyone else have a comment?
This is
Elizabeth
Carol.
has had her hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like Elizabeth has.
I did. Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, no, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to comment that the way that the rules are written, it does appear that the excused, unexcused definition is great. Excused means that you're giving a heads up. Unexcused, that you're just not showing up. And then the fact that you do have a shall language here, that we have steering committee members with 3 unexcused shall be removed, but that there is a softening language here that you can request an exception, and that exception is requested to the executive committee and the mayor's office staff. So I do feel like, as written, it does have an exception to this general rule, and that the definitions appear to be very easy to follow in terms of excused and unexcused.
And I agree with what's being said too about setting something up ahead of time, but making it more the spirit of the law versus the letter. Like one of the meetings is on, the Jewish holiday of Passover, so I'm probably not gonna make that one. There's 1 or 2 others that I know I can't make, but the rest of them I plan to be, participating fully. So I think if someone wants to come in and participate fully and is missing a couple here or there with notice, I think that spirit looks different than, I'm on other boards where there are members I haven't seen in 2 years. Obviously, there's everything in between. So I think that spirit versus letter makes a lot of sense to me.
I just wanted to say that if I don't make it to a meeting and I'm unable to participate because I don't have the information, I want an excuse to get out, and the guidelines would be a way to cover that. I plan on making the meetings that I can, but if I'm unable to get the information, I won't be useful to the group.
Well, we'll make sure that won't be one of the reasons that you won't be useful to the group. We'll be assured that you get all of the notes and the information needed in a timely manner so that you can make educated decisions. Anyone else?
Well, and that would be a question that I would have then too, is like, that was sort of the thought I had. If we are removing someone, then are they being replaced with another person from that district? And in that case, I mean, that new person isn't going to have any of the knowledge aside from the notes or records of meetings that have happened. So like, what is the purpose of removing someone from the board?
Okay,
and what's
so
the next step?
Okay, so let me
from the steering committee. Sorry, not board.
Okay, so let me kind of explain the way 2022 viewed it. We didn't remove anyone. The person kind of removed themselves by agreeing to the to the attendance requirements and the enforcement, the person was made aware of the importance of their participation after they had so many unexcused absences. Excused absences were understandable, taken as understandable. Everybody has obligations or something may come up. But unexcused absences were the ones that were more concerning to the groups. And I'm saying this for both, because the budget delegates have the same requirements. Understand when you set the requirements, you're actually setting them for both groups. And that is, if you're planning to do something as a steering committee and you need the support of the majority of the people, and you have people who don't come and don't bother to come consistently, we're not quote unquote ejecting them from the steering committee per se, but you're having a polite and honest conversation with the person saying, if this is not possible for you to live up to your responsibilities, we would, like to proceed, and, would you kindly resign from the steering committee? We haven't had anybody say no to that because it's not punitive. We're not trying to be punitive. We're just trying to make sure that the committee has enough membership that it will be successful and productive in what it's trying to do. Because, if you have a 20 person steering committee and only 5 people show up, you can't do very much. I mean, you're letting 5 people basically run the process. So it's a gentleman's agreement, gentlewoman's agreement, everyone. So if that's an answer to your question, Nicole, on what is the purpose of, why do we even have this? Just to have some understanding, an understanding by the entire group of the expectations of the level of participation. And you can adjust this if you think that this is a little too, or you want to go up or you want to go down. If you want to make it more restrictive or you want to make it less, or you can leave it the way it is. That's your option. So we cannot vote on anything today, but we can kind of come to some understanding today as to where you think you want to go, and then we can put it to a vote at the meeting on next Saturday. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
And
I'm not going to die on a hill about unexcused versus excused absences. I don't really care about like the particulars of the attendance policy. I just wanted us to think about then what? So say someone self-ejects or we eject or whatever, however you want to phrase it, then what? What do we do with that seat?
You proceed with the number of people that you have remaining on the steering committee, unless you come up with a different policy that says, in light of such and such and so, we don't want our numbers to go below, say, 15 or whatever. Or you can come up with a policy that says if a person is resigns or is no longer a member, we would like to seek another person. But the process would be, that person will kind of be behind the 8 ball on what's been going on before. We'd have to do an orientation. We can do an orientation and bring them up to speed. But that's your call. You can, on the last 2 steering committees, we proceeded with those that were remaining on the committee. But if you choose, if you want to have a substitute or, another person step in, that's your call.
Right. And I think that's what I'm trying to get is for people in the group to, I'm not asking it as a question for you to answer necessarily, to have an answer. I would like us to sort of have a discussion about then what. But anyway, again, I don't really.
So what would be your recommendation? Let's see what the group thinks in terms of recommendations with regarding to when the steering committee member resigns. Do you feel like right now we have a steering committee of, I believe it's 30 people? Is that correct? Is anybody
We're definitely not at 30.
Okay.
Because we don't have one from every district. So I think maybe I was thinking if we are I don't know what the cutoff is, and maybe this goes into the discussion of timelines. Like at a certain point down the road, if we get so far into the process, then maybe we don't replace the seat, but maybe up until X point in our timeline, then we would ask Fabian to try to find someone to, so that that district is represented. Because I think, I mean, this is sort of what I was wanting to start, like the whole point of having a member from every district. I know we haven't gotten there, and it doesn't seem like we're going to get there, unfortunately. But the whole point of that was to have each district represented. And so I would hate for someone who maybe they're only coming, like, maybe they're not attending very often, but they're there sometimes. Like, I would hate for us to have no one from that district then.
Okay.
And that would just be.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't see your name. Antoine, is that your name?
Antoine.
Antoine?
Is there any way we can go ahead and address this issue to get those missing district filled with a person to represent those districts before we move on to other things? Shouldn't we address this right now, you know, on trying to get those positions filled?
My understanding, Antoine, is that Fabian has been trying and has been unsuccessful. And something that we had talked about in our last meeting was everybody stepping up to ensure that all the districts are covered, which I think is something we should tackle in person since we'll need to vote on it. But I do think that is, I think you're right in that we need to have every district represented, but I think we need to be realistic that if Fabian hasn't been able to drum up those members at this point, we're not going to get to them. Lauren, I see you've got your hand raised, and I'm not going to take too much time, but I would suggest we just go ahead and pick a date past which we're not going to bring in a new member if somebody steps away, and then we can vote on that date at the next meeting, because it does sound like everybody's on the same page. But Lauren, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so please do.
Yeah, that's okay. Just real quick, just a thought or suggestion, and maybe you do it anyway. This is obviously very important to me, or attending as many meetings as I can, and I want everybody to know that how important it is to me. When we do roll call, I do, unfortunately, before I joined, I have a commitment for our next in-person meeting, and it is excused. And maybe when we do roll call, we can take, right after and just say so-and-so, their name, and they were excused. And so we can know that whatever that person's, and maybe it's in the minutes or whatnot, but I would find it helpful just to know as we go through roll call that someone wasn't able to make it and it was excused. So that can be recognized.
As well, in the previous, and I think you are doing it in your minutes as well, there is a grid that shows the meeting date and those persons that were present, those that had excused absence, and those persons that had unexcused absences. And that will be attached to the minutes as they are distributed to you shortly after your meeting. So after this meeting, for instance, that information will be available. And that's why I suggested to Fabian that you do a verbal roll calls, even on a virtual meeting, so that we can have the record and not make the assumption that we have covered everyone. So we hopefully can do that going forward. Chairman Whitney, is that possible?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. I want to propose, and again, we can't vote on this, but maybe we adopt the idea that we'll do a proposal and a second, and then we'll have a final vote at our next meeting. But I want to propose tax day as the cutoff for not having any new members join if people drop off. So that'll be April 15th, also planting day in Middle Tennessee. Would anyone like to second that?
I second that. I was thinking the same date. That puts a couple meetings under our belt, and we should have established some policies and whatnot and be able to move forward from there. So I second that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we've got the current attendance policy is written in the book, although participating more in the spirit than the letter. And if somebody drops out, if it's before April 15th, we try to replace them. If it's after April 15th, we just go on with the crew we've got. Does that sound like what we're all talking about? Okay, I'm going to say we're going to vote on that at the next meeting. Anything else about attendance?
Okay, so when Chairman Whitney, our next item for business is the timeline. Is that correct?
Yes, I think we need to get a clear picture of what, and this is actually why I'm really glad that you're here, of what our benchmarks should be and really understand exactly what tasks that we need to complete. I mean, we can just say we have to set the guidelines, but I think we need to be more specific about that.
Okay, so the guidelines, and you all should read the 2022 steering committee guidelines, because we basically improved upon 2021, and what you will be doing is improving upon 2023. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we learn from our processes. And this is now a citywide process. So of course, there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration when you have 35 districts, more than having just one district. So what a good thing to do is, first of all, to make sure that everyone has a copy of the 2022 guidelines, that you set a date by which, and I would recommend that be by our next in-person meeting, which will be the coming up Saturday, March the 16th, I believe, March the 18th. And that at that meeting, the approach can be your choice, but a good start would be to divide the guidelines that are currently there into sections, and to then have subcommittees of this committee read and make recommendations of differences or changes or ideas that you feel would improve the guidelines process for this citywide activity, and then have each subcommittee report back to the larger committee, and then make adjustments from the comments that are received from the larger committee. So, the whole process of dividing the small groups, come back, make a report, and then go back into small groups, acting on the recommendations from the large group. But that assumes, of course, that everyone has read the entire set of guidelines. You have a benchmark. You have a bench.
I'm sorry to interject. We're also waiting on getting a clear layout of what our new guidelines from Metro are. We're hoping to get that in some plain language as opposed to legalese, just simply because they are different than what Bordeaux and North Nashville had. So we do want to have information about those before we set these guidelines. And again, I'm hoping that before the 18th, Metro, Legal, or Finance, Michelle Boudreau, if you're here and you can help with that, we just want to have it written out exactly what we can and cannot fund with this, even if it's very broad.
And I believe that is the plan, to have that information available for you for the meeting. Okay. So I'm going to also see if there's any other ideas that you would have other than what I've placed out there for you to consider, because you really need to have your guidelines adopted by the end of April. The timeline for the full project hinges on the guidelines being established and adopted. I should say written or revised or whatever, and adopted by the end of April, because that fuels the next 6 months of the project. The budget delegates, the whole issue collection process, the voting process, everything is hinging on the adoption of those guidelines, which also have to be presented not for vote or approval, but for validation by Metro Council, which means you have to also schedule it so that it gets on Metro Council's agenda and gets that resolution. They present a resolution saying that this steering committee has is in operation, and these are the guidelines for the actual program for the 2023 participatory budgeting process. So you are in March now. You'll be March 18th, so you have 6 weeks, about 6 weeks for us to review this document, get your input on if you want to make any changes, then present it back to the group so that the entire group agrees with the document. And then you also have to have it reviewed by legal. The legal department has to make sure that you have not put anything in your guidelines that are against Metro Council's legal process or any federal process or any human rights process. That there's nothing in here that is not within the guidelines of operations as a government entity. So
could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do you know if we're going to have Metro Legal support like during our meetings? Or if it's just going to be like Fabian and then maybe sometimes finance and maybe, I just know with other boards and commissions and committees, there's usually support from Metro Legal so that they could help us sort of avoid those pitfalls along the way. But I didn't know if that was going to happen here.
Okay, so have you all, I've not been in your first 2 meetings. Have you all had the presentations by the various departments, finance, legal?
Yes, we had, yeah, I mean,
okay. So to answer your question, since you have had that, what you call board, that member orientation, the next step will be legal being involved. So every time, I'll give you an example. If you come on the section of where you're talking about steering committee, I'll use attendance requirements, for example. That will be reviewed by legal to make sure that we aren't saying anything or putting anything in the guidelines that is against government policy.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Everything we do is reviewed, and they will come to the meetings.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
They will come to the in-person, or if you have on the next agenda, say for instance, was a virtual meeting, they will attend any meetings that we need them to attend. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for clarification on the adoption of the guidelines by the end of April. Is that council's adoption, council's approval and legal approval for them to be formally adopted, or is this just where we've come to a decision and then from there they still have to go through that process?
It's the latter. You adopt the guidelines, but then the guidelines have to be reviewed in total by legal. And then legal will come back and tell us, this is fine. And then Fabian presents a resolution to the city council. So we have to get on their agenda that says that they support this program and its operations and the procedure that we have set. And then we move to phase 2, which is issue collection and budget delegate selection.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do you all know, did they go over the entire process with you on terms of the timeline? So did you understand how it all interfaces, and that you basically, your work is not over in April. Your work continues all the way to the end of the year. Okay. All right.
Yes, all that's been gone over. I think the reason why we want just the boundaries for ourselves in just some plain language is that it did seem fairly amorphous on the call. Plus it was a call. Plus we had all just gotten our feet wet and we were a little bit just kind of hit with a fire hose. So that's the only thing we're requesting. I feel like we're in a court. Like I need the court stenographer to get us those minutes and write them down for us. But that's the only thing. Otherwise, I think that end of April makes sense. Are there any other specific benchmarks for us as a steering committee of product that we need to churn out? Not just outreach to our districts and the city at large, not just engagement, not just ensuring that the guidelines fit within the rules, but are there any other products that we need to have on our schedule and keep in mind in terms of timeline?
Well, as you go through this process, you have to kind of think of the process as the whole thing, not just what you're doing as a steering committee, but the whole process of the whole program throughout the whole year. So as you're developing these guidelines, for instance, when you're talking, you will come up with the guidelines for the budget delegates. Now, if you want to come up with that budget delegate process simultaneous with your steering committee process or guideline process, but there are parts of your guidelines that are included in the budget delegates guidelines. So as you think through the process, you have to kind of think not just about what you do, but what the budget delegates do, what the community does, what the voting process will be, and what support you need from the different departments for Nashville city government. I was going to say DC, Nashville city government. So the benchmarks are things like, for instance, as you come up with the guidelines and you say that you are going to have voting, you're going to have issue collection, idea collection. Ideas will be collected by the community. You're going to be setting that benchmark as to what when those ideas are due. So that is a part of the steering committee process. You're going to be setting that benchmark. You're going to be setting the benchmark by which the budget delegates have done their work and their work is completed, and how they do the process of the work that they do as budget delegates. That is all in what you're doing as you're developing the steering committee guidelines. So I know you think that I just want to make sure you understand it's not just what the 25 or 30 of you are doing. You're also directing the processes for the other constituency groups that have to be involved in this process. The thing about when you say budget delegate, how many times will legal join you, or if legal needs to join you? If you say you want to have the departments participate in 5 meetings and whatever those, and identify what those meetings are and when those meetings are going to take place, that's the decisions that you're making. You're making those kind of decisions. Does that help you?
Yes, I
Does
think
that
it
answer
does.
any questions? So I would say very importantly, and I know we're at almost 7 minutes to 7. Do you keep to the time of your minutes, 1 hour meetings? Is that what you all agree upon, a 1 hour meeting of the steering committee?
No, we're listed at 2 hours at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, fine. Okay. So that's another thing, if you establish time for the meeting, you need to make sure that the committee members are aware of the timing so that they can plan to participate fully, and put at the top of the agenda those things that you need as much input from the committee members as possible, and at the tail end of the agenda, things that, if people have to leave, you have enough input provided by the remaining members so that you don't have to stop the process. You can just have the process move so that at the next meeting, if you have to have a vote on it, then you will have that available for them to review in between meetings by reading the minutes.
Absolutely.
This is a fast moving process. This is a fast moving train.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as we've been trying to respect everybody's time, I definitely want to move along and get talking about subcommittees, which is the last item on our agenda for tonight, to get those locked in so that we can also vote on those on Saturday, and so that people can be thinking about their roles in those. So everyone had thrown out suggestions for subcommittees at the previous meeting. I'll just reiterate those in case you don't have the agenda right in front of you. It was communications, public relations. There had been a question about whether those are the same thing. Engagement, compliance, rules, those two may also be the same thing, and budget. Those were the 6 categories that we came up with for subcommittees. Obviously, it's possible that there will be others added tonight, but I'd really like to kick off the discussion of subcommittees, as well as what people dreamed up about each of those subheaders during their own time this week.
Anyone like to start the discussion? Have you considered what committees you want to serve on? Hello.
This is Carol. So this is Carol. In many of my work roles in that, and what I currently do is compliance. So I'll throw in my hat to be on a compliance subcommittee.
This is Carol.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Ian, and I'd be interested in a rules committee. I don't know if that falls under compliance as well, but I'd be interested in that.
Okay, I'm going to say that's two different things. Rules is setting the rules, establishing the rules, writing the rules, and compliance is enforcing the rules, or being the person, having the committee, the steering committee. I'll tell you, when we get to a part where you've established the whole process of what's going to take place, and if there is a conflict or if there is a difficulty with enforcing what you've already set to be a policy for, I'll just say it's for idea collection. If you say you're going to have ideas collected from, you're going to use a minimum of 10 ideas from every district, and you get down to 2 weeks before the event, and you've only got ideas from 5 to 7 districts, then compliance comes in and says, are we in compliance with what we're doing? And do we then need to come back and look at a change in the rule? So we have those are two different committees. Understanding?
Got it. Yes, thank you.
This is Nicole. I'd be interested in being on the rules committee as well.
Okay, so I have Ian and Nicole. Anyone else on committees?
This is Jeff Broussard. I was interested in the engagement aspect and budget.
I'm going to join. This is Jacob Coopin. I'm going to join
Okay.
Jeff on the.
Okay, that's Jeff. I'm sorry, Jeff. Which one? Jeff, last name?
Jeff Broussard.
Russo. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm writing.
Okay. Sorry, this is Jacob Coopin.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be interested on the engagement side of the coin, so the engagement committee.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Jared Lane, and I'd be interested in either budget or compliance.
Matt, is that what you said? Matt?
Matt will be, either compliance or budget.
Oh, compliance. Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Jared had his hand raised.
Pardon? What was your name? Jared. And you said which one? Which committee, Jared?
Jared, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Jared? Okay, which committee? I can't hear Jared. Can anyone hear Jared?
No.
Jared Lane?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Which committee?
Okay. On budget?
Okay.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Tyler Brasher. I'd be interested in serving on the budget committee, although I guess we haven't really talked exactly about what that committee would do. Sign me up.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Kenyatta. I'd be interested in the public relations.
All right. Thank you, Kenyatta. Anyone else?
This is Siobhan. I'm interested in budget committee.
Siobhan, budget. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sorry. Okay. And I see the gentleman right over you is named Nick. Which committee?
The PR communications. I'm not sure which. We'll figure that out, I guess. But
Okay.
I don't want those.
All right. Anyone else?
Definitely, Tyler, we're definitely signing up for committees that we've not agreed will exist yet, but let's just keep going through this process and then we can discuss what each of them will be but this is Whitney, the chair. I would like to move that we make communications and PR the same thing, and I'd like to serve on that committee.
Okay, Whitney. Okay, anyone else?
Sharon Barker, engagement.
Sharon Barker, engagement. Thank you. Anyone else? If you don't volunteer, you'll be voluntold. Have I got something from Ed? Ed? Are you there?
Ed is just a person that is attending, meaning he's not a member of the steering committee.
Okay, what about, okay, I've got Jared, Jacob. Okay, I've got all of them. Okay, Lauren, have I got Lauren?
Hey, sorry if I interrupted. This is Michael Jones. I would do compliance or rules.
Compliant, either one?
Yeah, either one.
Okay, I'm gonna put either. Michael?
Could people just send their preferred committees in the chat, and then maybe we can move along the discussion? Just a thought.
Okay, so at some point, that's a recommendation unless someone else wants to continue.
I have a quick question. Does someone have to serve on a committee, or I'm on a committee within District 23 already. I'm heading a committee, and just to serve on another committee in a committee when I'm heading another committee, I didn't realize. So the question is, we have to serve on a committee within the committee. That's a requirement.
Yes, please.
Lauren, I think the idea with these subcommittees is that at some of our in-person meetings and maybe even virtual meetings, we'll go ahead and break out into those groups, because once we've got the guidelines kind of squared away, we'll need to focus on these other things. I also know that Fabian has offered to host other meetings if people want to have meetings not during our meetings time, which I don't think anybody wants more meetings. But I think the goal is that these subcommittees are going to be breakout groups within our existing meeting structure, so that we can knock through some of these issues without everybody needing to talk about compliance or communications if it's not something that works with their strong suits, plays to their strong suits.
Yeah, fair enough. Communications PR is of interest to me. I was, however, thinking that committee would go into the city and actually do presentations, and I don't have time to do that. But if we break out within the timeframes of what we already have scheduled, then PR communications would be of interest to me. Yes.
So is that Lauren?
That is Lauren. You bet.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I see a couple of hands up. Jason, your hand's still up? You're on mute, Jason. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was just gonna say that maybe we should define all these before we all sign up on them, and I've lost track of who's on what thing, and be happy to fill in the gaps wherever.
Okay, there will be an outline that will be prepared for you before the next meeting that will have this information that you will have an opportunity to add, subtract, or or correct. And then at the meeting that you have on the 18th, these will be things that you'll be voting on. So you will have at least an idea of what the committee is about, and then you can add and subtract what we need to do. I've not had the conversation with Chairman Whitney about the design of the meeting yet, but it's quite possible, if she agrees, that we'll be breaking into small groups at this meeting so that we can get started with our responsibilities, and you can refine your definition of your committee at that particular meeting.
I'd really like to, because I did put a lot of time in the agenda for tonight's meeting. For this, I would actually really like to have people's suggestions about what these committees will do. I did pencil that time in. So I think we should maybe, if everyone can continue to put the committees that you're interested in serving on in the chat. I see some of you are doing that, and thank you for doing that. Thank you for the suggestion. I think it was Nick. And then let's just go down the list. So I will start by saying I think communication and PR, that is going to be social media, that is going to be outreach to people who we want to have publicize this for us, whether that be council members, whether that be small businesses, that might be ensuring if you know somebody with a community newspaper, that maybe they're writing a small story about that people won't see if it's in the Tennessean. I think that's also going to be ensuring that all of our messaging is on brand as well as translated into all the various languages so that everyone in Nashville can participate in the process. And those are my thoughts about communications and PR. Does anybody else have other thoughts?
Can I interject? Is Fabian back at this on this call? The process. Do you want to interject about the fact that we will have a PR firm that will be doing most of the communications and PR work?
Well, we don't really have a contract yet, so I cannot give many details, but I'm happy to invite the PR person, we hire one to come in and talk to the committee about it. And to just run things by you guys. Yeah, I don't know that I have all the details to honor your request properly. Let me just say that we have to work within the constraints of what is permissible by the purchasing laws of the city. So we are working within those constraints, and that kind of drives what type of things I can do. As a matter of fact, we still don't have a business unit to spend any money, which is kind of crazy. It's been about a month or more.
If it helps, y'all, I've got 20 years in marketing and PR and communications under my belt. So I feel fairly confident in my abilities. If we don't want to spend money on that, which I know publicists are expensive. So I feel like we can certainly drive a lot of that internally.
No, but it's not the design of the campaign as much as being able to hire people to send mailers or to spend money on social media, all those things. Because of the purchasing laws of the city, you have to do it in a certain way. So to have it all through one vendor, that it helps us take care of all those details. That's what it is. What we did on the last cycle was to ask the committee to help us design the brochures to hone in on the message that we wanted to send. So, I mean, I see us doing something like that here as well, if that's what you guys want to do. But it's more about not what we want to communicate, but how do we do the delivery of the communication. That's what we have to follow city law in terms of purchasing and contracting.
Heard, thank you.
Okay, so the next committee that we have is outreach. And Chairman Whitney, did you have a point that you wanted to make about that committee, or would you like me to share how it was used in the 2022 process? Hello? Okay, so I will share in the 2020. Pardon?
Did you ask me a question? I lost the internet for a second.
Yes, I said, did you have, since you put the committees together, or you put some thought into what the committees would be doing, would you like to share your thought now, and then I can also assist with giving information on how outreach was used in the 2022 process?
Sure. To be clear, these were ideas that were thrown out in a group brainstorm. So someone had said engagement, which I think is what we're calling outreach, but I would love to hear how they were used in the previous process.
Okay, so outreach basically was predicated on the fact that we had members on the committee that had relationships with various organizations, be there community organizations or homeowner groups or social or civic organizations or religious entities. And the responsibility was to get the message out to those groups and to attend or to, when you went to your, say, for instance, your homeowners group meeting, you shared information about the process. You were our spokesperson for that particular group. So outreach is basically what it says, and that is that in the capacity of a steering committee member, you have an ability to explain to the community what this is about, how they can be engaged, and encourage them to participate in the activity. Any questions? As I said, we can refine this as we break into our groups the next time and talk about these various committees. Okay, so rule.
I saw Elizabeth's note, and I think I agree with that to an extent. We are all, by representing our districts, encouraged to do some outreach in various capacities. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, in the process, you will be called on, Chairman Whitney will be called on, Fabian is called on, and the facilitator will be called on to attend certain meetings. And it can be overwhelming if you don't have a community outreach committee that's already committed to say that they would go out and discuss it. It may not be in their particular district. It may be in another district, but you have a committee of people that are armed with the information, have the tools, have the handouts, have any kind of PowerPoint that is needed to go out and make these presentations. Any questions about that?
What is the distinction then between that and the communications team? It sounds like they have a lot of overlap, and that the communications team is going to be coming up with that language. It makes sense for me to combine those into one group that's focused on how do we engage with the community, what words, what language do we use? That would be my pitch.
We did not have a communications and PR team. However, if I were to take a stab at what the intention
Can I
was.
ask other members of the committee if they have opinions? I'm just curious to hear their thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree, Nick. That's exactly what I was asking. I thought, and then I heard something different in that we would have a firm. Yeah, so I'm getting confused as well. There's a firm that will help put pieces together, but then, and we design what the pieces look like. They have to do it. And then we take those pieces and go back out into the community, which I was concerned that I would have the time, but maybe there are within the subcommittee that would have the time. And it does sound like they should be combined. It sounds like there's confusion with what our role would be versus what the PR firm's role would be, but we don't have a PR firm yet because we haven't determined the budget so I'm getting confused as well. Yes.
I'm also confused, Lauren, for what it's worth. I'm sort of confused about a lot of the players involved in this. It seems like I'm not really sure the PR thing, having a facilitator, but I'm not really sure what the facilitator's role is and how that's different from the chair, and having, I don't know who else we're going to be hiring. What is Fabian, do you have sort of a breakdown of who are the external people we're going to be paying to do things and what we're going to be paying them to do so that we're not overlapping? Because I'm feeling very confused about what we're doing as a committee.
And also, real quick, Fabian, as well, this is our first WebEx call as a team. And I think when I hear Chairman speak, and I'm confused between, I would do well with somebody laying the guidelines and the rules for, or what a WebEx meeting would look like going forward versus an in-person meeting, so that we do come prepared. And I know we're supposed to raise our hand and things like that, but it feels like there's a lot of, just for me, confusion. So understanding what a WebEx meeting looks like versus an in-person meeting versus chairman versus Quinta.
Okay.
I
Let me,
apologize. I'm getting confused.
no,
with
no, I am the one that needs to apologize because, you guys got invited to this meeting today, and then, Whitney had her issue, Quinta had her issue, and I had my issue, and you guys were kind of stuck in the middle, and I take responsibility for that, and I want to apologize to everybody, including Whitney and Quinta, for starting this meeting the wrong way. So please blame me if you need to blame somebody for wasting, for creating a meeting that wasn't as conducive as it could be.
Yeah, no, and I'm not blaming. I just, and
No,
I
no,
think
but
it's been great. I just kind of have to understand personally, so I know how to move forward so that I can be the most productive I can be for you all.
Yeah. So the thing that is going to happen is Whitney, who's the chair of the committee, and Quinta, who's going to be the facilitator, are going to get together and work out how they're going to run the meetings. And then the reason we hire a facilitator is because we saw on prior meetings that you really can't know until the meetings start happening the level of help the committee needs to meet the schedule and the deadline. So we use the same model that they use in many cities that do PV, and hire a facilitator to help the process along. So I think this is going to be helpful to you guys and to the chair and the vice chair and the secretary to have the support of a facilitator to help make the meetings more effective. Now, regarding the funds, we really don't know how much are we going to spend on different things. We have an idea of a budget, but until we define the budget better, we won't know how much it will be. And then I also don't know if you guys are going to want to have, for example, food parties where we invite the community to come in and we serve food to be able to invite people to participate better. That's going to add to the cost of the overhead. If we're going to have interpreters, I mean, I didn't know if we were going to have people in the committee that needed sign language or they needed to have interpretation in different languages. So many of the things were unknown to me until the meetings happened. There's going to be a budget delegate committee as well. We may have people that need other support, like access help, like a way to get to the meetings. If they are young 16-year-olds, they may not have a card, and we may have to provide transportation. So there are all these variables that we don't know yet. And so, Nicole, I cannot give you an exact answer. What I can tell you is that we hired a facilitator to help you guys with the process. We are also paying parking on the downtown library, so you guys can actually attend the meetings without the burden of having to pay for the parking. We got a quote to do a translation of the flyer in 9 different languages. We haven't spent a penny yet because, like I said, the business unit hasn't been created yet. But once that's done, then we can start doing that. And then we haven't got a quote yet from the PR firm, and that's why I cannot give you a number on how much will it cost to do that. And like the reason we need a PR firm is not to necessarily to design the outreach, but is to be able to channel, to print, to send mailers, to put information on social media, to put ads on the papers, whatever that we may need to do to reach out to as many people as possible, mostly the people that are not participating because they are not aware of this.
Yeah. I guess, so I'm not as concerned about like how much money. I'm just trying to figure out, it feels like there's like a parallel administration process going on. And then there's the steering committee, but like we're supposed to be steering the process, but it feels like there are decisions that are getting made that are just being made. And so I don't know if those decisions are decisions that we're supposed to be having input on, or if they're not. And if they're not, then that's fine. But it just feels like there's like there are parallel processes. I feel less like we're being facilitated and more like we're just sort of being told like this is what's happening. So I'm confused and a little.
Yeah. And I tell you, it is confusing because for on one hand, I really can't wait till the steering committee makes decisions to start hiring people, because then it will take, I don't know, 5 more months from the time you guys decide until I have a contract. So I have to proactively try to figure out what is that you guys may want to do and try to get things in line. So by the time you guys can provide input in some of the things that you guys want to do, I can try to steer what is that we are contracting to do to meet what you guys want. And so it is really, the reason it looks confusing is because a little bit it is confusing because we are building the plane as we fly it in a way, because we have to get this done by October. And
right. So then can you maybe provide us like what decisions have been made, so that, because I feel like I'm fine with decisions being made. And maybe I'm the only one who feels this way, but it's like, I just want to understand what is happening or what has happened.
No, and I shared just now all the decisions that have been made are the 4 decisions I told you.
Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion. And you know, full disclosure, because I'm not at full strength today. I absolutely made, like I said, to jump in to the deep end of the pool with both feet. But I want to make a suggestion. Y'all can tell me how you feel about it. I think it may be best if we just call it on the agenda for the night, move to new business, and move on and jump back into the subcommittees, ideally by just self-selecting at the next meeting and moving into small groups, so that we can define those subcommittees in person when it's possible to actually vote on them. I would also like to suggest that those groups potentially then start to talk about guidelines internally, since I know we are somewhat under the gun with that, but I don't know how productive the rest of this meeting is going to be, and I do want to be respectful to everyone's time, and I kind of feel like we would do better maybe talking in person. How do people feel about that? Yeah, Jason, I saw your hand, I see thumbs up. Okay, I see lots of thumbs up. So
I agree.
Let's just jump to what new business we have for next week. What I see is that we need to, number one, we need to decide which districts we're picking up for the people for the districts that do not have representation. I'd like to get that done at the next meeting. We will vote on setting our date for when we will not have new members, and we will vote on confirming the remainder of the attendance guidelines. We will also firm up the committees as necessary, which may include dropping communications and PR altogether because there might be a firm in place, but we'll go over that. And I think the people who are interested in those committees can make those choices in person together. Something that I want to bring to the table, and again, I know we have a limited amount of time, but someone at the last meeting had mentioned that they thought it might be helpful to have a representative from the unhoused community or people who work with the unhoused community to speak with us about how to best approach the unhoused community in each of our different districts and how to involve people who maybe don't have easy access to a computer or consistent stable living environment, to get them more involved in this process. Ryan Lampa from People Loving Nashville would very much like to come speak to us. Is that something that people would find helpful if he popped in to talk to us for half an hour at one of our in-persons? I'm seeing nodding heads. I'm seeing a thumbs up. Okay, I will move forward with that with him. Again, we won't let it take up too much time, but I do think because it was something people brought up, that would be really helpful. So it looks like does anybody have anything else that they would like to put on the agenda for our next meeting? Okay, you've all just been like destroyed by the WebEx. I love it so much. I'm so glad that we're able to meet in person. I want to turn the floor back over to Quinta to allow her to close this out. Quinta, do you have anything else that you feel needs to be on the agenda for the next meeting?
Just a review of the timeline. I would like to always keep that in front of you so that you can see where you are in the process, if you don't mind.
Great. And we will bring back our friend the whiteboard that will help us with that, because we do love visualization and Whitney's handwriting, although hopefully Carol's will be better. Would anyone like to move to adjourn, and we'll just call this one a wash and try again tomorrow?
Move to adjourn. Jeff.
Second.
All right, hearing a motion and a second, we're going to go ahead and just call it for the night. And I love you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And we'll see you next Saturday. All right. Have a great night,
sounds good.
everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.